All right. Well, I'm excited that I made a new friend today, Calvin Noel. So excited, man, to have you on the Beyond Sunday podcast. How are you
Yeah,
today?
good. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, doing
Good to
really
see you.
well. Always love doing these interviews, talking about worship, talking about
hmm
whatever we talk about. And
Yeah.
so I'm excited, man. But I wanted to start with this, Calvin. Take us back, man. When did you get involved in worship ministry, or when did the call to be a worship leader kind of originate in your story?
Well, a lot of people don't know this about me, but like I didn't start singing until I got to college. So I didn't grow up singing like in high school or elementary school. I never was that kid that had the dream to sing. And I joined the gospel choir in college just to meet friends. And I realized that I had a singing voice. And make a long story short, my parents were shocked. I was shocked. Everybody was like, what? And so I kind of got the gift late in life. And I want to say that is really important because my identity has never been in music. Like a lot of people that have the gift early, their identity has been in that. For me, I can sing and take it and lay it down really easy. And so it wasn't until college that I started to really feel this thing as it relates to singing and leading. And I got to tell the story. I was working at a telemarketing firm, and during the break, the boss was like, "We're gonna have this girl Dion. We're gonna have her sing during break." And I'm like, "Oh my god, this is so embarrassing." And this girl could just sing her face off. And so, Dave, I was like blown away. And her name was Dion. And I remember asking her, like, how do you do that thing that you do? Like, there's a way that you sing that I gotta know what that thing is. And she just says, I just concentrate. And so I just took that as an 18-year-old kid to just really concentrate when I sing. But more importantly, the way that my soul interpreted it was just to sing like you mean it.
Yeah.
And so from the beginning, my whole thing is just sing a song like you really mean it. Like be authentic, be who you are when you're singing to the Lord. Make every word count. And so that's how, excuse me, that's how I started to get into worship. I would just start to sing and people would be like, "You're making me cry," or they would say, there's something different when you sing. So that's kind of how I got into worship. And then I started following some of your worship leaders like Clint Brown back in the day. And
Yeah.
I always like to sing Michael W. Smith. I always like to sing from my heart.
Yeah.
So
Man, okay. So I have a hard time believing that you didn't start singing until college. I mean, bro, you can sing. And so was it like, man, I knew I could sing, but I was just like afraid to. Like you were you singing in the shower? Were you singing in the car? Like, or
uh,
you just like never sang until you joined the choir?
I liked music. I always thought that I was going to be their friend. Like, man, I like Michael Jackson's music. I don't see myself being anything like them, but I saw myself being like, I could be their friend. And I just never sang around people that would ever tell me, man, my parents never said, Calvin, you can really sing. I was just maybe kind of shy.
Yeah.
So I knew I liked music, but I never had a voice of affirmation, a point of reference to tell me that I can sing. I just thought everybody does this. You sing along with what you hear on the radio, and that's really all I thought. And it wasn't until when I went to college, they was like, man, you got a great personality. You should run for this thing called Mr. African American Arts Festival. And it was a thing for guys and girls. And they were like, you should run for it, but you got to do a talent. And I was gonna do a dramatic poem. And my best friend was like, bro, don't you do no dramatic poem, bro. I was like, but I don't know what else to do. And he was like, you should just try and sing. Why don't you just try to sing a solo? And he introduced me to Fred Hammond's Running Back to You. And that was the first song that I ever sang a solo. And I won the talent competition. And my family was like, are you kidding me right now? Did y'all know Calvin could sing? And my parents were like the worst parents ever because they just did not know because nobody in my family sings. So
Yeah.
I'm a late bloomer. So things for me kind of come late in life. Like even my career now, it's like, God, you gonna bless me this late, huh?
That's all right. We all have our unique
Yeah.
stories, you know?
Yeah. So that's kind of how it started. Real talk.
Yeah. So did you grow up in the church? Like, when did you come to faith in Christ?
I came to Christ as a little child, but it was in college that I kind of had the rebirth because we were in college. There were a group of us that were really seeking the Lord's, having Bible study, like in my junior year. It got real serious, our faith. And so right then, there was a guy that was on the football team. He was just leading the charge, and he was just like, man, we gotta honor the Lord and we gotta get closer to God. And he was like leading a revolution on campus. And so a lot of us then were just really seeking the Lord, and we were going to church in college, and so that's where I started to really get close to the Lord. And
Yeah.
I've always been trying to find my way. I always looked for mentors and didn't have people to help me. Um, but I realized that God allowed me to walk through all those things so that I can do that now for other people. But at the time,
Love that.
I was looking for somebody tell me what I'm supposed to do because it was like my mom was very spiritual, but my dad really wasn't. So I had like two people on a shoulder, one the good and one's kind of like bad growing up, and I didn't know who to listen to. And
Right.
uh so yeah, I needed a lot of guidance as it came into worship. And so that's when then I when I left Cincinnati, I'm from Cincinnati, but I live in Nashville. Now it was when I moved to Nashville in 2001, I started singing with Michael W. Smith. And that kind of opened up a whole new love for worship, just watching him alone. So that's kind of how I kind of diversified my sound, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
So most people, when they graduate college, they don't just go sing with Michael W. Smith. Like,
Yes.
you gotta explain yourself.
So when I graduated college, I first lived in Pittsburgh for a year. I was part of the.
That's where I'm from. I'm from Pittsburgh,
Oh,
our
really?
hometown.
So, man,
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I hated it when I lived there. I hated Pittsburgh, and I felt like God was calling me there. And I don't know. Do you know who Bishop Donald Clay is?
I don't
That
think I do
well,
know
okay.
Donald
Well,
Clay. Yeah.
he's still my spiritual father to the day. He's amazing. But like I had went to his church because his teachings were just so incredible that
Where
I
was
was
his church? Where in Pittsburgh?
in Penn Hills.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's, like, on the
Um
other side of the city from where I was, but yeah.
yeah, and so when I moved to Pittsburgh, I lived in Monroeville.
Yep.
Uh but man, I hated it. I hated Pittsburgh. And I just thought I remember whispering to the Lord at night, reading the scripture about God was going to whisper something to me in a still small voice. And I went to bed and I was just like, Lord, I need you to say something to me about what I'm supposed to do. And like 2 or 3 in the morning, I don't know if you know who John Gray is, the preacher.
Yep.
He was one of my friends back in college. And he called me at 2 or 3 in the morning and just said, man, you need I said, hello. He was like, you need to move to Nashville. And I just was like, yo, I just felt like it was the voice of God. And so I wound up leaving that next week, moved to Nashville. And when I moved to Nashville that first year, I had a friend of mine that was singing background. She was from Cincinnati, Leanne Palmore, and she was singing background with Michael W. Smith. And he was doing this live with the worship album recording, the DVD in Canada, which about 25,000 youth in Canada, and he needed singers and a tenor. And she said, Calvin, I know you just started singing and harmony and learning these things, but you got to be on it. Like you got, and I was like, okay, okay, I'm gonna do my best. Okay, I'm gonna
She
try
took
to
a
learn.
chance on you, huh?
He took a chance on me, and that's how that happened. And then kind of one thing led to another, but I was really new at all of it. You know what I mean? And so it's been about 3 or 4 years that I've been singing, and then I started off. literally with Michael W. Smith in the first year that I was here in Nashville. And that kind of just gave her credibility, you know what I mean? And then you started, I started doing like the first time I got here, I did a session and I remembered all these top session singers were in the room. And I remember the producer said, "Hey, go in there and do like ad lib tracks and sing." And the next day, those singers came back to me. They was like, "Hey, we were talking about you yesterday after the session." I was like, "Oh yeah, what you guys say?" They were like, "Man, it seemed like when you were in the booth singing and they asked for open worship, they said you just sang like you meant it, you know." And
Mm,
I was like, I do mean it, don't y'all? And that's when I started to realize I don't
yeah,
think people really sing like they mean it. And so that's kind of been like my thing where I don't feel like I'm set apart, but I just feel like a lot of people do sing like they mean it. But I think sometimes it's so easy to do the mechanics of singing than just being truly engaged from the heart. So I kind of lead with my heart when I lead worship, you know.
yeah. This is probably somewhat tied to what you just said, Calvin, but what do you look for in a worship leader today? What makes someone really effective in that role?
Brokenness.
Mm,
I love brokenness, man. I like it's this thing, it's like you just authenticity, you just mean it. Broken spirit and a contrite heart, he just won't despise that. The Lord loves it. I believe that you can come to the Lord honest, you know, and just, you know, and I define worship as just loving God enough to do what he asks you to do. Just I love you, Lord, so much that I'm willing to obey you. And even if I don't understand, I know that I can come to you that way. And I just believe in being honest. So I love an honest singer. That to me, that's better than everything. I'd rather listen to somebody that just came through a hurricane in their life, or let's say they were in a hurricane. But sometimes if they sing that song from a place of brokenness, they may not have all the notes right, but that heart thing is right. Man, it just gets me every
mm,
single time. And I've always said this, like as worship leaders, I don't believe that our job is to lead people into worship as it is to be in a place of worship. And I believe that when you're
yeah,
in a place of worship, you will lead people. You know what I mean? But trying to lead is like hosting a party. Like, can I get you something to drink? Can I get you some food? Can I get you,
trying too hard.
you're trying too hard. And you know, by the end of the night, you didn't even enjoy the party because you were so busy hosting, but you weren't present. And so I kind of tell worship leaders, like, it's time to be present when you lead worship. Like you're hosting this party right now on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. But try to make sure that you're engaged in
Yeah,
the worship just as everybody that you're leading, you know.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I've told people before that the best stage presence is authentic worship.
yes.
You know, if you can get into that place where you're focused on the Lord and you're just free to worship,
Yes.
that
Yes.
is going to be the most authentic stage presence. It's not like trying to be cool. It's not trying
Totally.
to move the room, you know, with your
Yes.
passion, you know?
Enough of that. I'm so over the hype. I just never, and you know, Dave, I just don't know how to do that, to be honest. And that was the
Hmm,
thing. Growing up as a worship leader, I didn't know how to do the things that I saw culturally. Come on, lift those hands all over the building and tell God that like I couldn't, that's just not who I am. Like, I'm like, bro, what is that? What's this cadence thing that everybody's singing or speaking? And it was like this unspoken thing. Like I wasn't cultured in that. You know, I went to small, intimate churches that probably had 10 people in the room. So I never was a part of mega churches growing up. So I never saw this. I didn't know how to maneuver the gospel lingo. You know what I mean? And so
yeah.
when I started singing, that's why I said I was new at it. And then when I started seeing Michael W. Smith, I was like so blown away because you know I can cry in a heartbeat, and I was always afraid to cry until I started singing with Michael W. And I just saw how easy he would lead people in worship. He'd be like, "Come on, guys, let's go." He not even singing the choruses, and everybody is worshiping in the arena. And I'm like, he's not pumping them up. He's not. He's just, and if anything, he's disappearing. And that's when I learned, like,
Mm,
you got to disappear when you lead worship. You got to really kind of find a way to just get out the way so that God can be seen. And so being around him and people like that, I learned a lot about the humility of worship and just disappearing, when
yeah.
it's my time to lead.
I think that's really refreshing to hear, Calvin, because so many young worship leaders are focused on kind of the craft of worship leading, right? And there's it's
Hmm.
not all bad. Like there's
Yeah.
tools to learn how to connect with the room that you lead, understand who your audience is, looking people in the eye and encouraging people.
Hmm.
But it's almost like worship can sort of become only a craft that we learn
Yes.
rather than sort of a life that we live in God.
Yeah.
And you have to bring those worlds together or it's just what are we even doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I used to think that everybody got that, but as I got older, I was like, man, I think people are missing the mark majorly. It's just like, man, be authentic when you really lead worship and stop worrying about the performance. And I understand doing all the logistics and planning. I totally get that, but like sometimes we can do so much where it really hinders the flow of God. Like I know worship leaders will say, well, we only could do one song per Sunday, one new song per Sunday. And I get it because people can't people's learning ability is limited. But that's not how David did it in the Bible. It was like they experienced something and they came through a battle, and he wasn't like, I wonder what song I could sing that they all could sing. It was like they knew the God of the song. When you know the God of
Mhm.
the song, you can sing anything because you know the God that we're singing about. But a lot of times as worship leaders, we only want to pick the songs that everybody literally can memorize or sing easy, and only one new song per service. And I follow that rule of thumb a little bit, but
Yeah.
I love being able to just be in a worship service where everybody is so focused on the Lord. It doesn't have to be that you've heard the song, you just know the God of the song that I'm singing about. And
Yeah.
it allows you to, create new songs and new melodies and prophetic worship flows. And so, I mean, I love when we get to those places and services. I love when I get to be in worship where we don't know what to do. I love that awkwardness. I really do love those moments where God just arrests the service, spiritually, and you have to press in and lean in to find out what he wants to do, you
Who
know.
taught you who taught you how to do that?
I don't know if nobody's really taught me like do this and do that. It's just my experiences of when I lived in Pittsburgh and I was at that church, they just worshiped vertically.
Yeah.
Um, and I just really believe that. Like we call worship rehearsals worship preparation. And that was really big for me because you rehearse to perform, but if you have Thursday night rehearsal and you call it worship preparation, you're preparing your hearts for worship on Sunday. And if God wants to come through just through us talking about life and we don't sing a note, I'm going to get that person to be in such a spiritual place, better spiritual place, and on Thursday night rehearsal just by talking and fellowshipping. And their song might sound totally different on Sunday because they received a breakthrough at worship preparation on Thursday night. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just kind of started seeing things like when we come together, always see what God wants to do. Have your plan, have your songs, but don't miss out people. Dave, I think for me it was like even the worship collective I started, Aware Worship. That whole thing comes from we know how to recognize his presence, but we are horrible about recognizing what's in people.
Mm.
And I that's like my thing. That's my shtick. Like that's my like guys, we got to be aware of his presence and his people. Solomon asked the Lord for wisdom to govern people. Like, Lord, teach me how to govern people. And God was like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, yo, I like your speech, bro. Like, and he gave him everything. And I'm like, he was a songwriter. His dad was David. He was a musician. But I just think there's something, and I always tell worship leaders, if you really want to be sensitive to the presence of the Lord, you will have a sensitivity and a love for people because that's his heart. You know what I mean? And so for me, Dave, I love people. I love relationships. I believe that people are the treasure. I think the treasure is in earthen vessels. I think I may not be rich in finances, but I'm rich in human resources and people and relationships. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of what has happened with me and the things that I do with Aware Worship. When we come together, we just start ministering to each other just about life. And it's like God just comes through and just blows through the room and anoints us. And all we're doing is just being sensitive to one another and serving one another. So enough of
Yeah.
that, but that's my take.
No, it's great. And it's something I wanted to talk with you about because I do feel like in the church, we have as it relates to worship, we do have the vertical aspect
Hmm.
down, I feel. And we can always get more focused on the Lord, but essentially that's what we're doing. We're coming together to
Hmm.
worship the Lord.
Hmm.
But I wanted to read some of even your mission statement with Aware Worship that you
Hmm.
said that you seek to empower worship leaders nationwide to create an inclusive and uplifting worship experience.
Hmm.
You also say we humbly acknowledge there's still work to be done in making each other feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
Can you expound upon that
Hmm.
relational aspect of worship ministry and why that's so important?
Yeah. So, um, my what people don't know about me is I was always this kid on the playground that always got overlooked. So imagine playing basketball, and you remember when you had to pick teams? Dave, that was like the
Yep.
hardest thing as a kid growing up because they were like, give me Donnie, give me Tommy, give me Dave, give me Rob, give me Johnny, give me Ryan. And you're just like, will somebody pick me? And they would pick me last, or I wouldn't get picked. And it would eat my lunch as a kid. And so I just felt like I'm always overlooked. Nobody would really give me a chance. And so then, I've learned through therapy that that's the voice as you get older that tells you you're not good enough. Then you go
Yeah.
through then you go through puberty, and if the girls don't like you, then you just feel like, oh, nobody loves me. And then you start eating, going to food, and you gain weight, and then you disqualify yourself because you're big and blah 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 blah. And
Wow.
it just turns into a cycle. And a lot of times people are just looking to be seen, heard, and valued, basically meaning like, does anybody care about anything that I say? Like, do I matter to anybody? Does my, you know, does anybody care? Like, that's really what I've kind of seen. And so it was amazing just be around people that start to see me for who I was, and they started to make me belong. And I've just done a lot of work therapy wise, Dave. And
Yeah.
so, in doing that, I just realized through therapy is that we are wired for connection, and we are wired to be seen, heard, and everybody's looking for validation. And I think I've seen the body of Christ frown upon that, and they just say you get your validation from the Lord. But I'm like, the God rests in people. God lives in people, and sometimes you got to tap into the God that's within people to affirm what they see in you. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of been my thing where it's just like I always really big in just seeing people for who they are, not their gifts, not as a human doing, but as a human being. I live here in Nashville, and everything's very transactional here. How do I climb the ladder? How do I? And sometimes people just want to just be known for Calvin, just that loves God, but he's also don't know how to make a career out of it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I don't know if I've answered your question, but like that's just something really big for me is seeing people for who they really are. And everybody's like at the end of the day, it's like cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, they're glad you came, And I'm not even talking about worship leaders. I feel like churches should just take 5 minutes out of the service to say, go and meet some friends. You need friends. Take 5 minutes and go talk to somebody. And I'm going to encourage the entire church to go out to dinner with somebody, treat somebody to church, after church to dinner. After the upper room, that big experience in the Bible, where did they go next? They went to the house
Right.
and they fellowshiped. And I think the church is missing this fellowship of bring people in, bring people to the house. That's the kingdom. But we're so busy about church that we miss the kingdom. And
Yeah.
so that's what I've been really, my mentor, my spiritual leader has been really encouraging me is like, it's about the kingdom, not so much about the church. The church is still great, but we've kind of focused so much on church that we've missed the kingdom and we missed the relationship part. And God is after family. That's the
Yeah.
whole piece. You know what I mean? And if we knew how to be friends and family, even if you lost a loved one that was blood related, the Bible said the death wears my sting. It wasn't even sting as bad because you still got family and your friends. And I'm like, we don't even know who Jesus' brothers and sisters really were. He didn't even make a big deal about them. He's like, who are my
Yeah.
brothers and sisters? You know what I mean? Jesus was so into people and into relationships that I just started to see through therapy. I'm like, Jesus did this thing different than what they've been telling us. And so
Mhm.
when I got a chance with my platform, I'm just using aware worship to say, guys, it's about the people. It's about the people. And I'm seeing God unlock things, Dave. And people are asking me how you getting it. I'm like, people. I put a heavy emphasis on people and
Yeah.
stewarding and covering and releasing potential in others and not just mine. So
There's as you're talking, Calvin, I'm just thinking about the church, and there has been a tendency for us as leaders
mm,
in the church to push for having great and excellent experiences. But oftentimes that can come at the cost of people, where we see people as a cog in the machine to use
mhm.
them to have excellent worship, but we don't care about the person, to
Yes.
see them for who they are, to know what their
Mhm.
story is. We just want to have great worship, get a great
Yeah.
voice up there, a skinny, good-looking worship leader
Yeah.
that
Totally.
can you know create a great worship experience for our attenders. But
Yeah.
and there's aspects to that are like excellence is a good thing, but we
Mhm.
can't create just professional experiences at the cost of being the people of God.
Yeah, and it's almost like everybody's trying to build who got the best show in town, and they're not
Yeah,
calling it a show, but that's how it is. If the church was really
it's a show.
operating as kingdom, you would say, "Hey, your gift and your talent is so amazing. I think you should resign from our church, and I think that you should record an album and push you out." We're not even pushing people out to say, I see that God wants to use you more and more and more. We'll keep our good worship leader for 30 years because he makes our Sunday services great. Now, but that might not be what he's called to do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see
Yeah.
the church graduating people beyond the church. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so
very true.
that's the part where I'm like, man, and there's room for everybody. And so everybody's so territorial. Everybody's calculating what they think it should happen. You got to be young, you got to be skinny. There's no room for older people that are over 40. And I'm like, yo, this is ridiculous. This is not the Lord at all. And I understand passing the baton to the youth. But don't you think that people in their older age needs to be seen, heard, and valued? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like they still
right.
need it. Like I've been wanting to do something with our Christmas record of just going to nursing homes and singing over people, just to sit with them and listen to their story, just to give their flowers. Some people that are older, all they're asking for is some flowers. But what we're going to do, Dave, is they're going to die and we're going to celebrate everybody on social media and talk about how amazing and awesome they are, but you won't tell them and give them the flowers while they're living. What is that about? Why are we not giving people
Mm,
the flowers now instead of waiting and doing all these social media tributes and going viral, and everybody's got to find a screenshot of Johnny that died, and everybody, but nobody called Johnny and told him that he means a lot to them. That's backwards. That's just backwards. That's backwards to me. And I'm just kind of like, that's why I want to change. I want to see the expansion of what worship is in the church,
yeah,
to start including how we relate to people and how we interact with people. So, and that way,
yeah,
if you start doing that, you won't discriminate against the young or the old. You need all of it. Like,
all of it.
we
Yeah,
need young and old and handicapped and big and skinny. Like,
come on.
it needs to just look like heaven. It just needs to look like heaven and not what we think it is. But that's the thing. We're so busy trying to build the church that I don't think we're trying to build the kingdom. And if you're trying to build the kingdom, you're going to take care of everybody. But if you're trying to build the church, you looking at the next church over there to see how you can be just like them. And they got a
Yeah,
skinny guy with a white guy with skinny jeans, and so that's what you think it needs to be, versus looking to heaven and seeing all the people up there. My friend told me years ago, we're created in his image. And if we're all God's people are created in his image, he's not just black, he's not just white, he's not just Asian, he's not just Latino. If it's just me and you talking and me and you start a church, we got to look at us and say, who's missing? Who's
yes,
missing? If we want all of God, we got to answer the question, who is missing? And then
yeah,
that's when we start to say, you know what, Asians are missing from our build, the Latinos are missing. And so if you want all of God, then you want all of his people. You know what I mean? Like, you got to start
yeah.
thinking like that, when it comes to building the church. So anyway,
Yeah,
I
no,
can
it's
go
so
on
good.
and
And
on.
and part of it is, it depends on where your church is located and kind of ethnically the
Hmm.
makeup of your community, but I 100% agree. I think there's not enough churches who are trying to
Hmm.
develop a more diverse multicultural experience. They'll
Yeah.
take multiculturalism if it's somebody with a really good voice that they can put on the stage, but they won't take the multiculturalism if it's, hey, we'll put you in a place of leadership where we want you to have an opinion and to lead. And
Yeah.
that's where the rubber meets the road right there.
And that's the part that I'm having the hardest time with in the body of Christ right now. I've talked to some of my white friends, and I won't say their names, but they just said, man, I'm just going to be honest with you, Calvin. White people just don't want it. And they would say that to me, and it would hurt my
Don't
heart.
want what? Don't want what?
Don't,
Diversity?
yeah, they really just don't. The vast majority can go without it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I don't, I still believe that there's hope. I haven't lost hope or anything like that. But it's always been people like me that have the passionate voices about diversity that look like me. You know what I mean? Whereas,
Right.
and one of the things that I've appreciated about your podcast and your platform is that I've seen you intentionally make space for
Yep.
our voice. And that's huge. Like, you're one of the rare people that are doing that, with everything going on and politics and everything like that. I just feel like the enemy's trying to come against diversity, in the church. And I don't even think the church realizes that diversity is better. It's just better. You're gonna watch the Super Bowl and you're going to, and I'm not talking about this year's, I'm just talking about in the past. They diversify everything. You know what I mean? Like, you might get Katy Perry to sing, but she's gonna bring out Missy Elliott, or vice. I mean, like, or Country Bar is gonna bring in, somebody this that look different. Or, yeah, I mean, the world is always, they see the diversity when they go to school. They see the diversity. Like, you can't get away from the diversity, but the church, for whatever reason, we just want to keep it one way, and not diversify and realize we're so much better together
Yeah.
than we are separate. And I'm not just talking about whites, I'm talking about blacks. You know, there's so much that I've got from my white friends that I just tell black people like, man, you need to diversify. You just need to diversify.
Yeah.
Period. And then on the other side, like I go to church 45 minutes away from me because it's been hard to find the kind of church that I was looking for. And I'm telling you, when I go to a place where I know people care, the pastor cries about the people almost every week. And that just hits me because I'm like, he really cares about the people. And that's not even a black and white thing. I'm just glad that you love people
Yeah.
and you stand out like as a beacon in this whole city because a lot of people are doing transactions here in Nashville and it's climbing the ladder and it's releasing albums and it's our live stream and it's our podcast and it's our all the things. And some people I can't find people to just keep the main thing. And I feel like the simple churches are going to be the churches that grow, you know,
Mhm.
the ones that keep the main thing. And people gonna love going to a simple church, and that's what I found out for me. And I bring the piece of diversity and they welcome me for who I am, my size. They welcome all of me. You know what I'm saying? And like
Love that.
that's huge. And I'm just praying that God could use me to encourage people and congregations around the world, like, guys, diversity is just better.
Yeah, and as you're talking, and a lot of the conversations I've been having, Calvin, is it can't just be black leaders and black people that carry the torch of diversity.
Right.
What I believe, and I'm trying to do this with my platform, small as it is, I think a lot of what God is doing is going to be when, and this is tough for some people to hear, but it's going to be when white people in the dominant culture begin to pick that up and humble
Mm.
themselves and learn from history and say, you know what, I am going to sacrifice some of my preferences and my status and my comfortability to see a more biblical, diverse church.
Wow.
But that takes some dying to yourself.
Yeah, and on both ends, Dave. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
can hear that and appreciate you. And then I can also say from my end, I forgive. You
Yeah.
know, I think that sometimes in my culture we can forgive people too. Everybody everybody is not against us. That's why, you know what I'm saying? Like, and so we
Sure.
have to be able to be forgiving and saying, yes, we know what happened to us as a people, but let's start to find a new narrative and create
Yeah.
something new. So it takes humility on both sides. And then it
Yep.
just doesn't end with me and you. It's like, well, now who's missing? Who else can we find, Dave? Not
Right.
just black and white. And so it does
Yep.
take a real intentionality. And I'm hopeful. I just think, God is changing this whole thing about church, and that's a whole nother podcast. But like I just
Yeah.
see things shifting, never the message changing, but just the way that it's happening. I see it shifting,
Yeah.
kind of happened with COVID. It shifted. You had to think about how you did Sunday morning differently
Right.
when that thing came on. And I think that was part of God's strategy, just to be honest, you
Yep.
know. So
Right. How do you think about diversity from a musical perspective? I hear what you're doing with Aware Worship, and I hear R&B, and I hear strong gospel influence, and I hear
mhm,
CCM. You know,
mhm.
what concerns me is when I look at the American church, it is it is the musical diversity can be lacking sometimes.
Yeah.
And there are certain kind of movements that are dominating the industry and dominating the worship space. How important is musical diversity in celebrating various cultures?
I think it's everything, but like I'm gonna say something real. This may be a little controversial or challenging. I've never said this before
All
publicly.
right, this it's a safe place.
Um, when we talk about the industry, and we're in it, and people have said I'm too gospel to do this, or but then the black are like, you too white in your sound. Like I've heard it both ways. And even with recently, I've heard industry gatekeepers say, "Oh, you guys are like a cover band, like a cover. You do covers." And I can't. And everybody in every label is looking for, how do we find the next artist to sell records or whatever.
Yeah, it's
And
money driven.
it's money driven. And working with CC Winans for the last 5 years, here's what I'm gonna say. Everybody made jokes about her, right? At the awards. Oh, CC, let CC, goodness to God. It's different when CC covers it. Torn Wells, and I love Torn. And I mean, I've heard this over and over. If CC gets your song, you know, it'll go better. But what's really saying, Dave, in the big spirit of things, CC is an interpreter. A lot of people do not know how to interpret songs. And so what you need to be looking for is people that know how to interpret. See, they would say to us, Aware Worship, you guys, when we did Trust in God, we almost got 70 million views. What that means is, no, we didn't write it, but we know how to interpret what was written. And so you
Yeah.
need to be looking for the CCs. You need to be, if you want to build your label or thing, you need to be looking for more people that can do what she does, that can take your song and interpret it for a new audience. You know what I mean? Like you should be doing that for, even if you're black, you should be looking for an interpreter to interpret it to a predominantly white audience or to a CCM audience and vice versa. And that's what's happening. Like CCM is experiencing the explosion of diversity through Cece because she's interpreting the music for a whole new audience. I mean, people sing "Goodness of God" in the black church for like a funeral, bro. It's a staple. "Goodness of God" is a staple within the black church. You know what I mean? I just don't know if the other side takes our songs and use them in their platforms. But I
Why?
really think, I don't know why. I don't know. You might have the answer to that. I know we take CCM songs and we bring it to the gospel all day long, but I don't think people take our songs. I don't know if they think they're too hard to sing, or I don't know. I mean, I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm trying to make is, it's the ability to interpret. If you can interpret music well, you will find a whole nother audience. That's why people do hire Spanish translator, because you want to interpret the song that you wrote so that you can give it to Hispanics. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's where I'm saying I'm trying to get people to wake up instead of calling people, oh, they're just covers. And I'm like, what do you think Cece's doing? She's not writing this music. And it's one of the top artists because she's covering songs. Michael W. covered songs on his biggest worship album, is songs that he covered. You don't have to write the song. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But if you know how to interpret the songs, whether you're white or black, that's what makes you successful. Is how do you interpret these great songs? Some people are so stuck on, I wrote the song, I have to be the one. Well, they may sing it better than you, Dolly Parton. You might have wrote "I Will Always Love You," but Whitney interpreted it differently. And guess who's gonna get the royalties? Dolly. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I'm bringing this point up because I think this is a conversation about interpreting music that needs to be had within the industry part, is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not just church. I'm just talking about like in selling records.
Yeah.
That's what my point is.
There is a whole lot of tension there, and I've had some guests on that have a pretty hardcore view of this, where it's kind of like white culture will appropriate Black culture when it benefits them,
Mhm,
whenever you
mhm.
can use a voice like Cece or Whitney or whatever it
Yeah,
is to because they have a gift that is not like a lot of white people have, but they'll
yeah,
use that in but there isn't that, like you mentioned, there isn't that the other side
yeah,
of how do we take Black creation and not just steal it or take it for ourselves, but actually like uplift and
yeah,
see financial blessing and growth within Black songwriters and artists. And that's
yeah,
where I think we talk about revival in the church. I think that's part of it is is
yeah,
is let's seeing that sort of unity happening and not
yeah,
just borrowing and profiting
yeah,
and
and
turning our
that's why
back on the people.
and that's where I think it's the thing I tell you earlier about people and nurturing relationships because
Yeah.
even from take away the black and white, if this artist cared about people, I look at so many people that don't even take people on tour that are trying to like, do you hear what I'm not trying to open this can.
Open it up. Crack it open.
Do you know how many people work for artists behind the scenes, whether they're a drummer, band, whether they're background singer? Do you know how many people travel with people that also have aspirations of doing music? And do you know how many artists make a way for those people that serve them? They help give them a platform. They don't even do that. It's not like you see, I'm not naming any names, but you don't, it's not like you see such and such on tour and all you can say, well, he lets everybody that plays for him or her open. So it kind of,
Yeah.
it's never that. It's like you still gotta find a way to be seen and heard. And you're with somebody daily that you could just give a song. I mean, I'm just saying
They have a lot of power.
they have a lot of power, but I think I don't think people, and I don't think it's a thing of some people are insecure and they don't want to do it, but some people are not even thinking about it. Like you're
Yeah.
not even, it's not even hitting your radar of, oh wait, I got a platform and I need to give back to the underdog. You know, a lot of people are really
Come on.
trying to do this, and I could be a person to introduce a new sound to the whole industry, but it's always the same people. It's not like we go to the Dove Awards and we see, hey, we want to introduce you to people that we think are coming next. And you don't even know them. But we just think that they got the heart, they got the music, and we, as the Dove Awards, want to introduce you to Johnny, you know, Johnny Davis or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we think that he's
Pretty awesome.
amazing. We love his heart, and everybody's like, "Well, where's he from?" Like we just found him in the rough. He was a diamond in the rough, and we just found him, and we think he's amazing. Not because he's on Capitol, not because he's on Sony, but just we're not even doing that. But then we'll go watch the Grammys and they'll say, hey, here's who you need to watch. Here's who you need to watch. Here's who you need to watch. But the church we're like, oh, I'm just looking for people that can get us get bodies in the seats. And
Yeah.
you're just sitting there like, dude, we are totally missing it. If we would just use the kingdom model,
Yes.
we would be so it would be so the industry would be doing way better than they think. You know what I mean? And so I
Yep.
just or even like even people that don't get nominated. I mean, I know there's that big thing about the Dove Awards and all that thing. Hey, what if you start saying things like, "Hey, I know you guys didn't get nominated, but we wanted to say to you, we appreciate everybody that applied. And here are some things that you can do to grow. Here's some things you can do to get better. But we want to let you know, though, we do see you. We do see what you're doing. And all
Come on.
to all
Beautiful.
those people that didn't make the nomination, that didn't get on the ballot, please keep doing what you're doing. You know, people vote for this, but we do see you, and we're offering ways to help you to get your music seen in a bigger capacity. Like it's
Yeah.
just having that kind of leadership that's like, man, I can appreciate that. Like
Yeah.
I
Well,
wasn't
it's
selected.
like what's driving us? Is it
Yes.
business or is it kingdom? And I
There it
think you
is.
have to choose. And sure, those worlds intersect. Ministry,
Yes.
business, that's a reality. But what is
Yeah.
driving us? If the dollars and the cents and the bottom line are driving us, we will not do what you just said, Calvin. We won't do it. We'll find the artist that's going to sell the most records, that's
Yep.
going to have the biggest social media, and we're just going to ride that train
Ride
until it
that
dries up
train.
and then move on to the next person,
Move
right?
on.
But
Yep.
the kingdom looks at the underdog and says, "You know what? You
Bro.
have a call on your life. How can I come behind you and help you to flourish?" Right?
That's it. Man, the guy that saw the treasure in the field, what did he do? He went and sold everything he had to get the field. I'm
Yeah.
telling the industry as a whole, get the field. Get the field. You might just, it may look like a barren field, but there's treasure underneath the field. Sell
Yeah.
what you have, lay your life down for other people. The treasure is in the people. Lead your congregations, lead your label, lead your A-list artist career with people in mind, and you will be taken care of. I promise you. Like, the people that labor among you are trying to do the same thing you're trying to do. I don't care if you are the top artist or the beginning artist. Everybody's trying to get somewhere. And it just would be helpful if you could give people a hand. We're not looking for a handout, just a hand to honor God with what God has given us. And it
Yeah.
blows my mind because I work for everybody's stuff. You know what I mean? And then you feel like you gotta beg somebody to help you.
Wow.
I mean, I'm just being honest, but
Yeah.
just I just see this as a whole through. I mean, I have a lot of artist friends, and I talk to a lot of them, and I know a lot of young people that are starting off that don't know how to do this. And I'm trying to tell the young people, I'm saying, look, everybody's trying to figure it out. Every A-lister, they're not telling you this. They are trying to figure this thing out too. But that's even good information for someone that's trying to come up. Like, so we're in the same playing field. And I realized that, Dave, 5 years ago with COVID, when all we had was our phones, it was like God was showing me the playing field is level, bro. You got the
Yeah.
same phone that Oprah got, you got the same phone that Ellen got. They got to use the same thing that you have. So there's
Yeah.
nothing that's elevating them more than you. You just got to be able to use what you have. And I just tell people there is no high people in the kingdom and there's low people. Like, everybody that's an artist and doing something creative is trying to figure it out the best they can. And so what you got to do with podcasts like this is say, you know what, they make a good point. I'm gonna start cultivating the people around me. And I'm not talking about people call me and asking me to do things. I'm saying just look within your own family. There's people that I have siblings that are trying to do music and you ain't helped them. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, it
Right.
could be people at your church that you won't even sit with them for lunch. And so all I'm saying is give people an on ramp within your circle so that they
Yep.
can have access to the next level as well. And I think that's how we can
Yep.
start seeing things happen, more organically. Sorry, I'm
Yeah. I
just going
think
off.
no, it's great. It's great, and that's exactly what you're doing with aware worship, which I think is really noble. But I think this isn't even about like throwing stones. And I think sometimes we can
Right.
think of industry as like there's these evil people that are just conspiring to take all
Hmm.
the money and to minimize voices. I think it's really good people oftentimes that
Right.
are just
Hmm.
stuck in an American capitalist system, right?
Yeah.
And they're formed by that system. And it takes intentionality to kind of
Hmm.
step outside of it a little bit, right? And to
Yeah.
gain a new perspective. It's not like,
Yeah.
wow, all of these executives and record labels and the Dove Awards and all these
Hmm.
just evil people are doing things that are wrong. But
Let
it's
me
pay attention to the system that you've
the
been formed by.
exactly. Let me give you a tip on this because I do marketing professionally. Marketers study people, Dave. When you look through your phone and you get those ads and things, they are studying your behavior. They're
Yep.
studying what you like, they're studying what you click, and they're giving you things based off of what they have studied about you. And what we don't do is study people. And I'm not saying stalk people, I'm talking about just letting people be the driving force of like, what do people need? What do people want? What do people, and I think when you start thinking about people, like I said, you'll start carrying their burdens. You'll start carrying that, man, people have got cancer. Dude, oh man, I just feel so heavy for the people that have cancer. And then you go to a writing session and then you write a song because you want to help people get over that. You know what I mean? But when you start caring, that's how it infuses the creativity because you start carrying the burdens for other people. So I just tell people, start studying people, start looking to see how God can use you to be a solution. My pastor said this: God's created us to be a solution to a problem. And he said, if you're not being a solution, then you're a problem. It's just those two ways. It's just, what can I solve with my life every single day? What can I solve? And that's kind of how I look
Mhm.
at things. Like, I may not be able to do this, but I can solve some diversity issues with the where worship. Thank you, Jesus. You just got to come outside of yourself and realize that it really isn't about you. Like, Dave, I am seeing God do things right now, and I'm not going to get emotional. I'm not going to get emotional, but I know I'm not doing it. And there's some things that I'm seeing God do that I know, that I know, that I know, that I know. There's another person. There's another person doing this with me. And I'm telling you, there's nothing better to be doing God's will, and He's doing it on your behalf.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's what it's about.
Yep.
It's doing ministry, and you know that there's somebody divine, and it ain't about you. It's not about you, but it's about them. It's about the people, and that's what I just wish the body of Christ would stop ignoring people. Stop
Mhm.
ignoring the people around you because you don't understand them. Try to understand them. Try to call people, tell people thank you. Reach back out to them. Let people know that you see them. Text them. Say, bro, I see how hard you're working. Keep going. You don't know how hard it is for people to do what they do, but to have people there supporting you and cheering for you. Why are we cheering for people? What's
Yeah.
wrong with us? That's not the kingdom.
It's not.
Sorry, you tapped into.
Bro,
I
it's a
just
word.
feel, yeah,
I want what you're saying. I want that to wash over us because I think it's necessary for us to feel that humanity again. This is not
yeah,
just an industry. This is not just a machine. From the music industry to the worship industry to Sunday morning to building and growing churches. This is not just let's just we got to get off the train track of growth and
yes,
scaling and see people again. Like we
yeah,
have to, otherwise we lose our effectiveness in the process. We lose
y-
our soul, our humanity in the
yeah.
process.
It's so hard to do this in the kingdom. I'm like, I don't get as many calls as I used to get. I'm older now. And then people will say, well, because, you're overweight. And I'm just like, listen, we all have an appetite out of control. You can just see mine. But you got something too that you got an appetite out of control. You better believe you eating too much of something that I can't see. But we all have something. And the Bible says, lay aside the weight that easily besets you. And sometimes weight is anything that impedes motion. It ain't
Come
just
on.
pounds. It's
Yeah.
anything that slows you down. It could be that you just love to be depressed. I mean, but that's weighing you down, the things that you're going through. And so a lot of times you just need people to help you get through a journey and get through a process. And I'm just hoping that whatever God platform God gives me, that I can just help people to see a different perspective. I think when you can look at things differently and get a different perspective, it allows you to say, you know what, that's a good point, and I'm going to make my individual. changes in my own life, you know. So, Dave, you didn't got me worked up.
Whew. Powerful, man. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we need to be talking about,
Yeah.
you know, because there are a lot of systems that are hurting people. This beauty culture within worship ministry
Yeah.
is it's hurting people, and we're missing out on important voices, important leaders, and we're sidelining them because they're too old, they're too
Yeah.
big, they're not trendy enough,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's wrong.
Let
We
me
have to
tell you,
repent of
let
that.
me tell you something. The one of the reasons why I did not want to release music was because I didn't feel like I was ready to be, you know, in the physical space that I wanted to be. And I remember Cece was the one that just says, "Why are you waiting to release music?" She said, "What are you gonna wait till you're 80 to release
Mhm.
music?" And so I started to release music, bro. And it started to go viral. And I was just afraid that people were gonna say things and talk about me. And people have been very so encouraging. And I have been a
Mm.
part of organizations here that have literally discriminated against me. And I'm not gonna open this can of worms here, but I have receipts of people saying he can't be the face and in this industry, and they know who they are. And I've
Yep.
seen that come against me, and I've been silent, I've been quiet, and I'm like, Lord, please do something different. Yeah, I'm gonna work on me just like you gonna work on you. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna
We
work.
all have our challenges,
We all have our
you know?
challenges. You know what I'm saying? But like, and I'm like, don't even book me, book somebody else then that give them a chance, but just do something different. You know, like switch it up a little, like golly, you know, switch it up a little bit. And if you don't know how, consult people like Slingshot, you know, consult people like me and just ask, how do I do this? And let somebody kind of enlighten you and say, well, here's some options, you know, because I know every pastor's trying to think about what do I do? How do I keep people? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do I keep my worship leader? And like, man, I think you got to keep the main thing, the main thing. And I think you just need to start caring about people. When people feel cared for, bro, you are so loyal. You are so loyal to people when you feel cared for. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, if I have a good community, I don't want to travel all the time. I want to be with the people that care for me
right.
the most. You know what I'm saying? So anyway.
So important, man. This world that I live in with staffing and with worship, there's so many worship pastors who are burned out, and I just want to provide some encouragement here, and then maybe we can close with you encouraging them, Calvin. But those who have felt overlooked and pushed aside, and I just want to encourage the pastors to
Hmm.
don't become so focused on your multi-site and your growth and your
Hmm.
giving that you use people and then discard people.
Dude.
That happens way too often. I think we can take a cut on trying to have the prettiest, flashiest worship experience if we can have more humanity and seeing people for who they are. So anyway, Calvin, leave us with this, man. I want you just to encourage the listener right now who feels down and out, who feels like they've been discarded, they've been overlooked, they feel like their time has come and gone, they don't have anything else to give, there's nowhere for them to serve. Maybe they're struggling with their weight, their look, their sound, whatever it is. Well, what would you say to them?
You know, for those that are watching, I would just tell you, like, one, it's not over for you. God
Yeah.
can take your misery, the very thing that's holding you down, the very thing that's weighing you down. God can take your misery and make it your motivation. I'm telling
Mm,
you what
come on.
I know. He can take your misery and make it your motivation. The very thing that you've had a problem with that you're understanding now, the solution to it. You are a solution to a problem. You are a solution to a problem. If you are 10 years old, you are a solution to your problem. If you're 90 years old, there's people that need what you have. Do not let the enemy tell you that you are washed up because you're black or you're white or you're fat or you're skinny or you're handicapped. You are needed in the kingdom. You're actually in the lead. You think that you're behind, but you're in the lead. They just haven't caught up to, we want what you have. And so you got to stand on the side of, I know God has called me. I know that He's used me. I know that He's taken the pain. I know that He has taken the things. When I lost my family, I felt like Job, but I know that God's going to use everything. Every pain that I got goes into every song that I got, and everything that God has given me. I deserve to be where I am because I held on. And I know that God is my redeemer and He's going to bring me through and He's going to bring you through just like me. So hang in
Mm,
there, hang in there, keep fighting, keep serving, keep
amen.
being broken, and keep worshiping.
Yeah. Whew. This is ministering to people, bro.
Amen.
I feel the presence of God on this podcast interview.
Me too.
You know, I just want people to kind of rest in that. You know, feel that encouragement today. Um, so aware worship. I want all of our listeners to, you know, some of the conversations that I'm having. My podcast started with the who's who of worship. How do I get the biggest names? And I've kind of moved away from that in some ways
Right.
to like talk to more of the underdogs because I just
Mhm.
love the underdogs and I feel like there's so
Me
much
too.
beauty. There's so much beauty on the margins. So go listen to Aware Worship. This is what a beautiful organization and collective. The music is great.
Thanks.
So Calvin, if anybody listening here wants to connect with you or connect with Aware Worship or bring you guys out for an event, where do you want to send people?
Yeah, just awareworship.com. Awareworship.com or Instagram, aware.worship or at Calvin Noel. Just message me. We get it and we'll respond. And then it's real simple.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. This was
Thank you, brother.
amazing.
I'm about to get on my face after I hang out with you.
go
Man.
go have a worship session after this, you know?
Yes, I'm about to.
Um, yeah. I appreciate you, appreciate what you're
Appreciate you
doing.
too,
Appreciate
brother.
your vulnerability, your
Thank you.
honesty. You know, when people not enough people sort of crack their heart open the way that you have. And when that happens, when you're vulnerable, it allows the person listening to tap into their own vulnerability, which we need
Hmm.
more of. You know, we
Yeah.
need that
Yeah.
that honesty.
Yeah.
So thank
Amen,
you, my
brother.
friend.
Thank you, brother. Take care.